But before we do this, just quickly look at what happens in the ocean. We have the atmospheric increase of CO2, and this is again the Keeling curve shown here in this sketch, in this graph. Okay, the red curve is the Keeling curve, CO2. What happens because of that increase of atmospheric CO2? It translates directly into an increase of the CO2 concentration in the upper layers of the ocean, which is can be expressed as a partial gas pressure, which is shown here, and you can see that there's a positive trend as well, large variations, but overall a positive trend. And associated with that is the decrease in pH. Okay, this is the observed pH decrease here in this location. So in this graph, you can see that this is CO2 concentrations on one axis on the left, and the pH value is here on the right side. Okay, so that is relatively trivial, because it's just a one-to-one transfer. If CO2 increases in the atmosphere, okay, it directly relates to an increase of CO2 in the surface ocean. Okay, so but now let's have a look how CO2 concentrations look like in the oceans. Here are distributions of CO2, and this is sort of an approximation which shows the distribution before the Industrial Revolution. Okay? The next slide shows you the additions of CO2, okay, during the Industrial Revolution. So let's have a look. Okay, get the pointers on. The top image shows you a vertical slice cutting through the Atlantic Ocean from Southern Ocean here at 60 degrees south to the north. And you can see different colors. And the colors are shown here in terms of values. Okay, red correspond to high values and blue to low values. So what can you see? You can see that relatively low values are found in the warm surface waters of subtropical gyres. Okay? Why are these values so low? Highest values you find in deep and bottom water. Why are the values so high? However, now another aspect is you travel through the oceans. You go to the Indian Ocean, you see similar structure, but it's even more pronounced at depth, and in the Pacific Ocean as well. At depth, you get a higher value. So this is how it looks like, and then you can think about, well, how does it work? And so first of all, why is it relatively low in the warm water regions? It's to do with the solubility effect. Okay, warmer water has a lower solubility, and have a look at the lecture on air-sea gas exchange. You know, if you don't know what I'm talking about. Okay? On the other hand, there are carbon pumps. Okay, marine carbon pumps that move carbon from the surface into the deep oceans. And there are two parts, and the most significant part of that is the sinking organic matter. Particles of organic matter, so-called detritus, that sinks through the ocean, and as it arrives in deeper parts, it becomes redissolved. Okay, and this is a vertical pumping mechanism. The other mechanism is to do with something we call subduction. Okay, it's the cold waters in the regions where you have deep convection, or where you have dense water formation in the ocean, takes up CO2 from the atmosphere. Cold water can store more CO2 compared to warm water, and then you have a transport mechanism that moves this water into the deep ocean, the thermohaline deep circulation of the. And you learned about the deep circulation. You know where it starts, you know where it ends. And so as you now move through the deep oceans, the CO2 content, the concentration of dissolved CO2 will increase from the North Atlantic, where the deep circulation starts. That's the great ocean conveyor belt, to the North Pacific, and also the Northern Indian Ocean is pretty isolated from the, that's why you have higher levels there too. Let's just have a little break before we actually look at the anthropogenic changes that have occurred in the distribution of CO2 in the oceans. Wow,